call this June 9th meeting of the York County Planning Commission to order. Are there any changes to the agenda? Issues? Any questions? Is there a motion to accept the agenda?
Motion to accept.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? And moving on to the minutes from the May 12th meeting. Any concerns or changes? If there aren't, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, moving on to our first order of business, which is the rural zoning project.
Good evening, commission members. Jonathan Buono, Planning Director. This was a big project, so at the outset, I just wanted to say thank you to all the staff members that participated in this effort. We had almost the entire zoning team, a good majority of our management team for the department, and several members from our planning division also participated in this effort to get this done post-haste. So just a little bit of background on the project. The county adopted a strategic plan in September of last year, and included in there are items to make the code more user-friendly and to fix solutions proactively rather than letting problems creep up. So that in tandem with a couple of recurring themes that happened during rezoning hearings with county council. They had issues with particularly rezoning requests going from AGC to RUD, trying to grapple with that when it came to specific types of land divisions, whether it involved family members or not, things of that nature. So all of those things were kind of wrapped up into, let's take one big bite at the apple, let's have a big scope, let's talk about all these types of problems at once, rather than doing it an amendment at a time over years. So let's do it all at once very quickly. So we brought that forward to the Planning and Zoning Committee of Council. It became the Rural Zoning Project is the title for the project. And after a couple of months meeting with the committee, we have the proposed amendments that you have before you, and that's the result of staff working with the Planning and Zoning Committee of Council to talk through the issues, vet them, talk about comps in different jurisdictions, what those recurring issues might be and what some potential solutions might be. So what you have before you is what the committee had moved on as a group of three to present to the rest of council. So I'll go through these one by one, and I'm going to pause in between each subject type to allow for questions rather than holding for the end, because it'll get really confusing trying to refer back to everything. This first topic on AGC1 and RUD1, those are two zoning districts that cover some of the rural area. And really those two districts are not materially different from their counterparts AGC and RUD. There's not really much of a difference in the use table. There's not much of a difference in dimensional standards, anything of that nature. And one of the only key differences is that manufactured housing is allowed in AGC and RUD. It is not allowed in AGC1 and RUD1. So there could be an argument to be made that those two districts are exclusionary because they're intended to cover the same footprint as AGC and RUD are. So the proposal here is to shift those two districts to legacy districts. That's just like the UD or Urban Development District is treated today. It's allowed to continue in perpetuity, but it becomes legacy. The proposal here is to leave all the same standards that exist for AGC1 and RUD1 in place. The use table remains unaltered for them. So that wouldn't affect any of the property that is currently zoned AGC1 and RUD1. The only change would be if an applicant comes in and they want to rezone their property, those two districts would no longer be an option to choose from. So that's really the only change there. Any questions on that subject?
Yeah, I've got a couple. First of all, appreciate you doing it this way, because that is what I was going to ask. I'm trying to remember all these by the end. So size-wise, not any difference in designation, still the 5-acre minimum, right?
Yeah, and so we talked through a couple of different potential solutions to the lot size question in rural areas with the committee. We suggested they could combine some of these districts to make a number of districts fewer. We talked about adding another district that might be in between the 5 and 1 acre size. Went through all those different options, and this is the option that the committee landed on was this legacy district option.
Right, but what I'm just trying to clarify myself is, today, AGC 1 and AGC still have a minimum 5-acre regardless. Both of them have that same requirement, right?
So AGC and AGC 1, 5 acres, RUD and RUD 1, 1 acre.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So, because what I was thinking is, oh, could we have somebody that, so if someone has AGC 1 and wants to do a manufactured home, under this, they could, but they'd first have to get it
No, so
rezoned.
they wouldn't. So the use table is unchanged. So right now, in AGC 1, you can't do manufactured homes. After this change, you still can't do manufactured.
No, I'm saying, but it's a legacy district, so
Yeah.
if I have AGC 1 and I come and I say I'd like to rezone to AGC, oh, legacy district, you want to do that, that's what we want to do,
Yes.
then they could put the home on there.
Yes,
Right.
after they rezone, yep.
But it's, that event has to trigger a rezoning for that to happen.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what legacy districts are intended to do. They become obsolete to some
Right.
degree, and then
Right,
they
right.
rezone to the appropriate district. Yep,
Okay, that covers it for me. Thank you, sir.
no problem. Anyone else? The use table, as we went through the use table and vetted the differences between the districts with the committee, they pulled out a couple that they wanted to add to the use table. So go through these relatively quickly. So assisted living, they're currently allowed as a special exception in AGC 1, RUD, and RUD 1, but it's not allowed at all in AGC. So the thought was for the committee, make it the same for all 4 districts, allow it as a special exception in AGC as well. For hunting clubs, landscape supply, and craft breweries, type 1, and the difference between type 1 and type 2 is type 1, they just make the craft beverages on site. Type 2 is they also have hosted events on the property, in case you have a question about that. So currently, all 3 of those uses are allowed in AGC, and the proposal here is to allow them in RUD as well, with a special exception. Craft breweries type 2 and solar farms, those are currently allowed as special exceptions in AGC, and the proposal is to add them as a special exception in RUD as well. Any questions on that?
A quick question, is allowing hunting clubs on RUD, which would be an acre of land? That seems excessive.
So that's a good point, but remember that RUD, the 1 acre is the minimum lot size. So there are many, many properties that are RUD in the county that are hundreds of acres, dozens of acres. So those would be suitable. And I think that's a good reason to have it as a special exception in RUD, because on 1 acre, that certainly doesn't make sense. So the board would see that. But if someone had 200 acres, that would make a lot more sense.
So is there a threshold on the books for acreage for hunt clubs?
I don't believe there is. My crack team will check on that while we carry on the discussion, but I don't believe there's a limitation.
Okay, maybe just something to think about.
And
'Cause
I,
as soon as it's allowable,
That's
then
right.
it becomes
Yep.
subjective, right?
Right.
and I was thinking that same thing and had the same question about solar farms too on 1 acre, right? And so as you're considering this, if there aren't some definitions of, yeah, it could be an RUD, but a solar farm can be on no less than this amount, and a hunt club can be on no less than this amount, that might help you with some of the questions that might come up from people that see this and may want to do something different.
Yeah, that's a good point. And a suggestion I might have for all of you as we go through and we get to the end where we entertain a motion, as I think has been helpful for county council to work through something large like the budget. If one person makes a motion to approve, and then as you all have recommendations for council to consider changes, make those independent as amendments to that main motion, that might be a helpful way to do it. So that might be a suggestion that, council consider acreage limits for, hunting clubs, that type of thing. I do believe we have an acreage limitation on solar farms.
Yeah, I'm going through that one right now. There are no limitations for the hunt clubs. There's nothing on there, and I'm looking right now for the acreage for solar farms.
Okay.
I don't see anything for acreage.
Okay. This one will take a minute to work through, but this was a priority for county council, was to go through the family exemption process, because we had some folks that were eligible, some folks that weren't. The language is very specific in the code, and it's, over the years, it's been tailored that way to prevent developers from trying to hide behind a property owner and then take advantage of that loophole. And essentially, what a family exemption is it's an administrative variance from road frontage. That's really all it is, for the most part. So we went through with the committee and talked about various changes. So we went line by line through each of the provisions in the family exemption, and these are the changes that they landed on that's in the ordinance. So right now, the grantor of family exempted parcel needs to have at least 10 acres of property before they start granting it to a family member. So that has been changed in the draft to the end of the process. The grantor's parcel, the residual parcel, must meet the minimum lot size for the district that it's in. So the grantor, after they give up a lot or multiple lots over a number of years, their parcel must be at least 5 acres in AGC, at least 1 acre in RU. Second change is, right now, the grantor must have owned that specific piece of property for 20 years at least. And the change is to go to 10 years for that. Recognizing that they are broadening the applicability and having the time that you need to own the property, the committee decided to trim how many of these you can do and how frequently you can do them. So right now, you can grant up to 2 exempt lots per year from the same parcel. Under the proposed changes, it will be 1 lot every other year, up to 5 total. If you count the 5 exempted lots plus the residual, now you've got exactly 6 at the minor subdivision mark. Anything over is a major subdivision, so a pretty logical ending point there. Next change, right now, grantees, if you receive an exempted lot, you're ineligible to receive another, and they eliminated that, so there's no limitation. So you could get another exempted lot from another family member, the same family member a year later, however that shakes out. And the last change, right now, all lots, both the parent parcel and the child parcel, if you want to call it that, need to meet the minimum lot size for the district. And under the draft changes, the grantee lot could be as small as 1 acre, even in AGC. Any questions on the family exemption change?
I want to walk through a little bit of that just to make sure I understand the terms. So the top thing on here that says parcel must meet minimum lot size, but then down at the bottom doesn't have to be any more than 1 acre. I got lost in those two
As did I.
ideas,
Yeah,
okay?
me
Yep.
too, me too.
So,
Explain that, please.
yeah, so you think of it in terms of who owns the parcel at one point in time. If I own the parcel, I am the grantor, and so my residual lot, the grantor lot that remains after I cut off some of my land to give to a grantee, that needs to meet the minimum lot size. The grantee parcel that I'm gifting to a family member, or having them pay for it, whichever you might do, that can be as small as 1 acre, regardless of zoning district. So if you've got 6 acres, you can cut it one time to give a 1 acre lot in AGC to a family member, but after that point, you've only got
You're
5
done.
acres left. You can't keep cutting it.
Even though you could do it 5 more times, you don't have enough land because
That's right.
your original parcel now is at the minimum for the zoning.
That's right. And that makes a
Okay.
lot of sense, because otherwise, if you were to keep going beyond that, the property might as well be zoned
I
RUD.
understand that. Sometimes the real-world examples help with the way this stuff has to be written for it to be communicated in a sense that everybody understands.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There-
yeah, okay.
The way to explain it colloquially, and then it's got to be written in pseudo-legalese, so it
That's-
can
that's
only be
right.
interpreted
That's
one
right.
way. Yep.
So in that situation, if there's 5 acres, it's AGC, and then you have the 1 acre parcel, it will remain AGC as
Yes.
well? But will that be considered non-conforming or?
Yes.
Okay,
Legal nonconforming.
Yes.
okay.
Because then that means that 1 acre could never be divided again unless it was rezoned into something that allowed you to divide it smaller.
Right.
You getting this right?
Yes.
Oh, man, my homework's paying
Could
off.
that be
Good,
used
good.
as a reason in the future for someone to come and say, hey, this is non-conforming, we need to rezone this, and it's in the middle of AGC?
That is a potential. That happens today, yeah. So there are, it's not too prevalent, but sometimes we have some lots in AGC that have built 2 homes on them, and they go to subdivide, and they don't have enough acreage for both lots to be 5 acres, right? So then they have to go to council and say, we need to rezone the whole thing. Okay. This one is very straightforward. So minimum lot width, you can see in the table there, on an arterial road, which is our highest category of traffic roads in the county, the minimum lot width right now in the code is 350 feet of frontage in all of the residential districts. So this goes beyond AGC and RUD. It affects the other residential districts as well. We looked at what other counties do, as well as what the state regulates for driveway separation, and 350 was way out there, so kind of an extreme outlier. So the proposal here is to change that to 150 feet to match all of the other districts and how they treat road frontage for both arterials and major collectors.
So, okay. This is the measurement as you're standing in your driveway, left to right of the property line against the road?
So
Is
this
that
would be
what
how
this
much
is?
frontage you have across your entire front along the roadway. So you would need to have a minimum of 150 feet in any of those districts on an arterial road. If any smaller than that, you couldn't keep subdividing.
Okay. Okay, I think I got it.
Yeah. And the way this shakes out with 150 feet, depending on where if you're cutting out a new lot, say you had 300 feet of frontage, well, you can get 2 lots out of that, right? But depending on where your neighbors are putting their driveways, that might dictate where you have to put yours. You might not have the option to put it anywhere you
That
might
was gonna
like.
be my next, didn't we have some things come up a while back about driveway separation, and we had to have a exception for somebody because we were 10 feet out of whack or something? So remind me again, what's that separation supposed to be?
I don't know that top of mind, but when it comes to arterials, that's going to be DOT encroachment, so they control all of those curb cuts onto the state roads. So even though we might approve the lot to be subdivided, where you get access to that arterial road is going to be approved by DOT. They might
Right, but I
dictate
thought we
specific-
had said something about driveway distance between driveways, looking at that. Is that not something in our code?
It is something in the code.
That-
It's
that's
not
what I
related
was
to
trying
this.
to
It
recall,
is
is that-
related, but it's not the same table. Yeah.
Do you
I think
remember
what we
what?
looked at was not on an arterial road, it was on a smaller,
Sure.
on a smaller road.
Yeah,
Right,
small
right, right, right.
commercial
I'm-
road, I think.
I'm just trying to clarify in my mind of, okay, great, that's 150, and what's our distance? Could somebody wind up getting in trouble that they're at 150? I'm thinking about the previous thing we just talked about. So somebody has a chunk of land taken off, and that happens to be the chunk that's on one of these roads. Okay, great. And now they need to put in a driveway. Okay, great. We told them it's got to be 150 wide minimum. That's what they've got. Okay, great. But then they go to put in the driveway and they bang into, no, you got to have 175 feet between driveways, and I can't get there from here based on where my neighbor's driveways are. So I was just trying to recall what was that Am I thinking about this right? Am I
You're right,
mathing
and
this
I
correct?
don't know
Okay.
the specific off the top of my head, I don't know if,
Yeah, that was a driveway waiver that was given up near Fort Mill.
Right.
They had the existing development that was there, and they're putting in a new development, and they needed a waiver for the driveway separation requirements. So that's what you were thinking about.
And I'm just trying to make sure that whatever we're doing here doesn't bang into that other, whatever those separations are.
no, and I think that's kind of a unique circumstance in that the existing driveway, which they were widening, was very close to the adjoining property line.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. All right, cool.
All right, for AGC front yard setback, so here you can see in this table, right now in the code, it requires 100 feet of building setback for properties in AGC and AGC1. And that stood out as an outlier as well, but there's a reason for that, because prior to the code update, you had two distinct setbacks in AGC, one for agricultural structures, which was 100 feet, and one for residential structures, which was 50. And when they were consolidated into one number, the conservative number was selected at 100. So here it's to revert that to 50 feet for all structures, regardless of whether it's agricultural or residential. Talked about it with the committee. There didn't seem to be a distinct reason to separate agricultural structures from the roadway in an agricultural district. Right? Any questions on that one? Pretty easy.
So we don't recommend putting your barn 50 feet off the road, but you could if you wanted to now.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
All right, last one here is shipping containers. So right now, they're allowed in specific circumstances, and the committee wanted to have some changes to that. So right now, they're allowed in AGC, AGC1, RUD, RUD1, and the industrial districts, RI, LI, and ID. And the proposal is to allow them in any district. Okay, so that's the first change. And right now, on residential property, you're limited to one shipping container. And is everyone familiar with what a shipping container is? Connex containers, big metal things? Yeah, okay. And you could have up to 3 on an industrial lot. Now, there are screening and location requirements in there regardless of district, and that hasn't been proposed to change. So in terms of the number, it would be 2 are allowed on any district, on any lot in any district that is at least 1.5 acres. And then you would be allowed to have 1 additional shipping container for each 2 acres above the 1.5 acres, up to a maximum of 10. And then the last change there, in order to have them on a residential lot, you need to have at least 5 acres. And so the 1.5 acre change would be applied to residential as well.
All right, so a couple here real quick. Is there any, the shipping containers come in different lengths? None of that's specified. Doesn't matter whether you're doing a 20-foot, 40-foot, you do some combination of those, you get up to a max of 10 based on the size of the property you've got, period, right?
Right.
So if I had 100 acres or I had 30 acres, I'm still gonna be stuck at 10.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any height restrictions with that, if I stack them?
Just the height limit for the district.
Okay. Because I don't know that, I've seen some home designs that are starting to use this now, and I didn't know if that would,
Yeah, you can use them as building material,
right?
Yep.
Okay.
as long as you get it permitted. Yep.
Okay, and the last one, allowed in any district, does that include PD?
So PDs, any of the special districts are special animals, and you're only allowed to have the uses that are itemized in that district. So that's a good question.
So theoretically, in a PD, if you've got restrictive covenants and things in there about what can go on in the PD, but you're allowed to have a storage shed or something that's not clearly defined, you could wind up with a shipping container.
It would depend on how the language of that
Sure.
PD were constructed
That's
and
right.
interpreted. Yep.
Okay, all right, all right, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions on shipping containers? Okay. With that, staff does recommend approval of all the text amendments included in here, except for one, and that would be the last one. So we recommend retaining the existing language, or alternatively to slightly increase the current language. And the reason for that is shipping containers, they lend to bad habits. They often become code enforcement cases. They encourage people to have hoarding tendencies. Initially, it'll start in the container, which is fine, but then it ends up out. And if you have a bunch of them, there are maintenance issues. They tend to get pretty rusty pretty quick, being out in the elements and their metal structures. And whether or not they're allowed, they do become visual nuisances to neighbors. We do get a lot of folks that call about those. So that would be our only item that staff does not recommend for approval. All of the amendments are either consistent with the comp plan, or it's not addressed directly by the comp plan. And as I mentioned at the outset, these amendments are furthering the strategic plan adopted by the county last year. And all of the amendments are within the range of best practice. And a couple of the changes that I've mentioned are sort of outliers that are being reeled in by this project also. And I think it's important to mention that the scope at the outset, you all took the survey, was pretty broad, and I think the committee decided to go with a scalpel rather than a machete approach. So there's narrowly tailored changes in the code here, so we're not pulling the thread and having the whole thing unravel. I think that was pretty prudent on their part, so I thought that was important to mention.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Would you mind, since I didn't know that was coming, that you guys were going to say, hey, we don't like the last one, could you back up a slide?
Sure.
So we could just see that comparison real quick one more time? Okay.
I'll say to that one that when I read over it, I was a little concerned myself. I feel a lot of the same way that in the same way that you said. So if we do choose to pass that particular part of it, I would want to add provisions for height, size, additional screening, and truthfully, 10 seems extreme to me, even on larger properties. But that's just my two cents.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it is out your way, but what I see these being used for are very convenient, easy, quick storage sheds, right? That are metal and already put together, and my goodness, if I ever did want to just take all of that and go somewhere, I'm not trying to move a shed. I put that on a trailer and it's gone. So I can see some of the benefits, but yeah, I was worried of going in any district and now 10, what is that going to look like? Somebody's got 25 acres somewhere close to RUD or RSX 30, 40, and then the backyard's got all these containers and you have to screen it, but still they're all there, right?
Right.
It's kind of,
And as soon as you plant a tree, it's considered a screen, but the tree doesn't grow for,
right,
a while.
right.
So
Well, to give you an example, so where I live, the neighbor actually has a couple of shipping containers. And they're in the back of the property, in the wooded area. And I feel like in most cases, it's probably what people are gonna do. They're not gonna put them in their front yard. They're not gonna be close to
Yeah.
where other people can see them. And so a max of 10, based on this, is how many acres would you have to have a 10?
10 or
So 20 acres. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of land. So I feel like, I don't feel like it would be as big of an issue as far as neighbors go. Now, somebody could put it right on the property line right next, so there's that. But
yeah, what bothered me more was allowed in any district.
yes,
That-
that part I did kind of.
That gives me more heartburn with the 10 than if it stayed in those.
Mhm.
Well, or even just 2 on an acre and a half. I mean, you can't get too far away with an acre and a half. You can see, an acre and a half
That's true.
from your back porch to the end of your property. That's that's really not all that far.
And
Right.
before, it was required on 5 or more acres, which I
Mhm.
think is more reasonable
Mhm.
for something like this.
Is there a way to provide a condition where the larger number of containers you allow, they have to be further distance from road frontage? Because similarly to the way some of the codes are written about minimum setback, can conditions be applied where, let's say if you did want 10, but you cannot have them within 50 feet of the road frontage, because at that point, at least, you're somewhat limiting what people can see. Unless you're just gonna say, well, we don't want 10, let's restrict the number to 5 or something, but I can stick one somewhere strategically where it becomes an eyesore, where now everyone comes through, and if I want to, as you alluded to earlier, leave the doors open, the junk's coming out of it, if I'm using it as storage container, so
Mhm.
I think placement would be key as well.
Yeah.
Well, I think it says screening, all shipping containers shall be screened so that they're not readily visible from adjacent lots or right-of-ways. Screening may be accomplished through the use of vegetation, fences, walls, other structures, or a combination of these.
So if, just, and I might be getting a little bit ahead of myself, this is a yes or no. This is not something that we can approve conditionally like we do some other things. We have something come before us and say, yes, that can happen, so long as these other 3 things happen along the same way, right? We're not really in a position where we can try and modify this and rewrite it.
We can make provisions, I think.
Yeah, so what you can do, and this is a text amendment, so the whole thing is a recommendation to county council.
Okay?
So what you can do, and what you often do, is you make a recommendation to adopt with the following changes. And I'll say, the more specific you are about what those changes should be is helpful to council, because sometimes it's vague, like, I don't know what they want, so.
Okay. Do you have anything off the top of your head that you want to add to that? As a,
Well, I would just reiterate what I've already said, which is I am leaning again towards what staff recommends, which is to not approve that last section, or to heavily provision it to limit size and height. I think height especially could become an issue if it's not in the code. I'd also like to see additional stricter screening and maybe more limits on total numbers. And then in the same vein, going back when we were talking about acreage limits for solar farms and hunt clubs. So, I mean, I think that's, when we get to a motion, the provisions that I.
yeah, and I guess what I was trying to sort through in this is I agree on the last one that if you're going to have these other provisions that you could go up to 10, we probably don't want to be in any less than 5 to start with, right? That I can start building out and have more containers based on that math in the second one. But there might be a way to state it that somebody that just wants to use that instead of going and having to have a little shop built or something for storage. I mean, I've seen people use these as shops and wire them up and whatever. Okay, so if they wanted to go that route, that they could do one in place of, but it wouldn't open the door for all this other stuff in a smaller lot size. And I don't know if we can come up with the phraseology to cover that. And I'm not even sure we want to go that direction. That, for me, that would be what would make sense. Keep the size 5 minimum for what's talked about above.
Mhm.
But if you wanted to do one in place of buying an outbuilding, your outbuilding was going to be a container, well, you could do that in any district with any amount of, says 1.5 acres, okay, you can do that within one, but that's all, you can get the one, and that's it.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction in that, the code section that's on basically the last page of your staff report for this particular item. It's relating to shipping containers as an accessory use.
I was gonna
So if they're part of a primary structure, these sets of conditions don't apply to them. So they could, in theory, have an entire business that they use shipping containers as building material for all of it. So this is really just addressing the shipping containers that are used as accessory storage.
Right.
So if that's already, if that issue is already addressed, do you feel,
I think maybe what I'm doing in my head is rewriting the second one then to say only one allowed on an acre and a half instead of two, and building from there. Because I think if you do that, the rest of it works.
because you're most concerned with the residential aspect of it, not necessarily the,
I'm worried about, I want to give someone the opportunity in a residential area to possibly use that in place of a shed, if that's what they'd like to do, having
But
the
they-
metal and this and that. And if it's allowed in any district, okay, but then you need to be on an acre and a half to do it. And you only get one in that acre and a half, not two. And then you could still build up to the max of 10, but that's not gonna happen till you get to whatever, I didn't do the math backwards, we say that was 30,
19, I think she said. It's almost 20.
almost 20, and I agree with you, once you get to 20,
Yeah, it's enough
and if
land.
you haven't cut all the trees down, right?
Mhm.
So I would say that if we were going to go against the recommendation of staff and pass this one along as we would say it was all right, I would change the second piece to be only one allowed in 1.5 acres and leave the rest of the text here. Because that means if you're on a 3/4 acre lot, you're not getting one. You gotta go get a mini building of some kind that'll fit and go with whatever restrictions may be in there or what have you. But if you've got an acre and a half and you've got some spot you could put this, then this could be an option for you. So, that's my 2 cents. I don't know if the rest of the group wants to support that modification as poorly worded as it was stated by me.
so, let's see. If we would like to make, I have a quick question for anybody who can assist. If we want to make a motion with additional provisions, but in more than one of the categories, do we need to make 2 separate motions, do you think? Or 3 to pass the ones without any additional provisions, and then the ones with provisions pass individually? Or recommendations, I should say?
Make a motion if we're going to do a recommendation, and then allow some amendments to that motion.
Okay,
Probably the simplest way.
okay. So before we move on to that, are there any more questions or discussion?
I don't think so.
Sorry, I feel like I'm looking at yellow. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I want to, but I'm not sure if I can say it right. And I'm gonna
You want me to try?
take it.
You want me to
I'll
try?
take a shot, and then
Okay,
you
take a
guys
shot.
can, so I would like to make a motion that we approve all of the proposals from the committee that have been submitted and amend the shipping container proposal such that there is only one container allowed on an acre and a half instead of 2.
Would you like to include anything about size or height requirements? I'm just asking.
I
That's
think,
where my head went, so.
yeah, I'm not sure, not knowing the height requirements well, I think that's covered in the existing from what we went back through before, and I don't
Okay.
know that we need to say anything about
Okay.
it.
Well, and I guess if you only have one, you can't stack them, so it
Mhm.
eliminates part of that problem.
That's right, yes, ma'am.
So if he's making a motion, can someone else add an amendment to that motion?
So I was saying, let's do a motion to recommend the amendments to chapter 154 as proposed by staff. Let's make that our main motion.
Okay.
And then get a second on that,
And then
and then let's make some amendments.
Okay.
So let's take up the amendment that you would like to make. Let's make that its own separate motion under this umbrella.
So do you want to backtrack and just ask for the motion on section 154 as presented by staff?
So I'm going to withdraw the previous motion, and I'm going to make a motion that we approve the changes to section 154 as staff has recommended. Is that right? Okay. And then we need a
Or at
second.
least as presented. They actually recommended that we.
presented.
Yeah, presented would be more
As
accurate.
presented,
presented.
okay.
Sorry.
It's all right?
So is there a second? Okay. So it's been motioned and second. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? And then are there additional amendments to be proposed?
So the
All right, I
amendment,
just want to be abundantly clear. If you vote on the main motion, then the business is done.
Yeah.
So you want to hold on the main motion, ask for any potential amendments, because I think that's where the conversation is headed. You vote on the individual amendments one by one, and then when you're done with amendments, then you
amendments
revisit the
happen
main
during
motion.
discussion, right?
Okay.
So that's,
So,
so we need to,
Which is what I always start the discussion.
so now we're in discussion.
Now we're in
Is
discussion.
that right? Okay, so we've backed up a little bit. So I would like to offer an amendment to that the section on shipping containers as presented be changed to allow only one on a 1.5 acre parcel.
Just a reminder, that's in section 155.
155.
Did he mention it was 154?
Yeah.
Yeah, so to fully capture the scope of all the text amendments, you would want to just amend your main motion slightly by saying all of the text amendments in chapters 154 and 155, because the scope of the project touched both chapters.
Okay, so.
Apologies for all the,
We're talking about the main motion again, or back?
the main motion.
Yep.
So for clarity, the main motion is to cover changes that are happening in sections 154 and 155.
You got it.
And your amendment is that instead of two, there only be allowed one shipping container on
Right.
at least 1.5 acres.
Well, if we're going to say the minimum for a container is 1.5 acres, then on that 1.5 acres, the maximum is 1. And then as you move above that, you get 1 for each additional 2 acres, right?
So as presented.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And then in addition, I'd like to discuss the,
Well, so that was your amendment, and was that was it on the shipping containers?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so on the amendments, we are going to go ahead and vote on those one by one.
individually? Okay. So, are there any other questions or discussions on the shipping containers? No. So there's been a motion for an amendment with has there been a second?
We're waiting for a second on the amendment motion.
I'll second that.
Okay?
So we have a motion and a second on the amendment to reduce the allowed from 2 to 1. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay. And then.
Now we come around and make another amendment motion. Okay.
Yes. I was going to say, I would like to further amend to discuss or ask council to consider limiting the acreage for solar farms and hunting clubs. And I'll be honest, I don't know what a good minimum number is. I would, though, say, obviously, it has something to do with gunfire and structures, but I'm not sure where to find those applicable laws. I mean, it's commonsensical, but I don't want it to be in the code
Right.
if there's not at least something spelled out. Because not everyone's common sense is the same, to be fair.
Could we do it in a way that we're passing on a recommendation to council that they consider adopting some minimal lot sizes for those uses?
I
Is
think we
that
can
enough?
Pass it on however,
And-
however.
And
we'd
let
like.
them work
Determine the
through,
limit.
how do we get the amount, how do we size that, rather than us trying to come up with a number?
Yes.
Jonathan, let's clarify that. How is that one written right now?
Or there,
The change that's being proposed?
so right now, there's no minimum lot size for
It's just that
hunting
it
and
would
fishing
be
clubs.
allowed.
So it would be
None at all?
establishing hunting and fishing clubs as a conditional use in AGC, and then as a special exception with the same conditions to the use
In
of
our-
minimum lot size.
Okay, so then, yeah, there will be no issue if your amendment is
Less than
to ask
specific.
council to establish a minimum lot size for that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what we're doing.
Okay, then I would make a motion to amend, we'll just say sections 154 and 155 again, since I don't exactly know where it falls, to establish minimum acreage for the solar farms and hunting clubs.
And I will second your amendment.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, so now we have
Are we done with our amendments is the question.
I would say, do we have any other discussion or additional amendments to propose?
So now we're actually at the point to vote on the motion and the two amendments.
We have the main motion now,
And-
those two amendments.
Okay, so for the first main motion, which was yours, and it has been seconded, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
Is there any additional discussion? Okay. So all of those in favor of the first motion? Anyone opposed? And then moving on to the second, the first amendment.
Well, you've already voted on the
Already
amendments.
We have already voted
So you're
on
done.
amendments, sorry.
You did it.
Roll into it, we're done. We
Okay.
made it.
Sorry for all that confusion.
That was exciting.
That's both. So now we're moving on to our rezoning requests. Diane, would you like to read the number, or would you like me to read the number?
As your position as the chairperson, you should read that.
Should I? Okay. So let's see. Our first rezoning of the evening is for tax map number 055, 00, 00007, and 010, and 020.
Right, this request here is located on the western part of the county, AGC to RUD, and RUD to AGC. This is located off of Highway 97 in Hickory Grove. And the request here is the applicant is proposing to rezone a 1.112 acre portion of 3 parcels from either AGC to RUD or RUD to AGC. And that's to be able to facilitate the recombination of parcels with different zoning districts. And so you see on the map here, we're talking about the top of the property is up in this area right here, aligns with this section here, and they want to be able to take a portion of that and add it to here, and a portion to add it to here, and they're split zones, so they need to be able to rezone it to be able to match these new lines for a recombination plat. Zoning for the area here, the majority of the property in the area is actually zoned AGC, agriculture conservation. There is some RUD, including the property here as well as to the north of that. Comprehensive plan for the area here is agricultural. And so we're recommending approval. The future land use map of the comprehensive plan has very little bearing to this action. The scope will simply transfer the same amount of land from one district to the other, so there'll be no increase to the districts. And just to kind of bring you back to what we're just talking about, like how does a rural zoning project actually affect this one here, and there would be no effect based upon what we're looking at before, because we're talking about just recombination of split zone parcels. Any questions for staff?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay. Moving on to our next rezoning, case 2523, tax map number 26500000103.
This property, or this request here, is located in the northwest part of the county, almost to the Kings Mountain State Park area. It's off of Maynard Grayson Road, which is just north of Highway 55. And the request here is to rezone a 1 acre portion from AGC to RUD of a 6.62 acre parcel. The properties currently have 1 single-family home. The intent here is to be able to subdivide the section off here, off of Highway 55, to add a lot there. It's for a family member to be able to build their house in this location. Property here, 55 is pretty much the dividing line between the AGC and the RUD districts, except for towards Beamguard. But there's a lot of AGC and then RUD to the southern part. Comprehensive plan kind of follows that same line, where the AGC or agricultural recommendation for the northern part and the rural residential for the southern part. We're recommending approval. This request does not align with the future land use map, the comprehensive plan. However, the future land use designations are not meant to be parcel specific. And so, as you can see, this property here actually abuts the rural residential area. So we're supportive of that request. The scale and character of the development is similar to the ones in the neighborhood parcels to the south of that. And then once again, to kind of bring back around the rural zoning project, this one would meet the 1 acre minimum lot size. It would also meet the residual part, because they'll still have, at the end of the day, 5 acres. However, they've only owned the property for 5 years. So therefore, that would kick it out. And they would not be able to do the family exemption if they chose to go that route. We're recommending approval. Any questions from staff?
So if this qualified for the family exemption, we wouldn't see it, is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Any additional questions? If not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Oh,
Discussion?
I'm sorry. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This one does have a condition, thank you. Yes.
Okay.
Is it that they recombine
They
the,
they do their plat within 90 days of rezoning.
so, do you want to
Yes,
withdraw
to
and then?
include the condition that staff recommends.
And my second.
Okay, so we have a motion with the recommendation by staff and a second. All those in, is there any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay,
I'll try and keep an eye on that. If you'll just glance at me, I'll give you a thumbs up. We're ready to go, or we still need to discuss.
please do, because I feel like we talk about it and then I need to remember.
It's-
That's
You're
always
doing
been a
great.
problem of mine.
You're doing great.
Let's see, moving on to case 2525, which is tax map number 202-00000023, the address on Hillcrest Road in Clover.
This is a request to rezone a property that's located in the central part of the county, off of Sharon Road and Hillcrest Road. Request to go the 4.2 acres from AGC to RUD. The applicant is proposing to divide set over the property 4.2 acre parcel to create 2 lots to construct 2 single-family homes. Lots of 2s. So the property here right now is vacant. Just to kind of let you know, it was part of a property that was below that was subdivided over the past few years. Because they had road frontage here, that can create an individual parcel, and they've come back and they want to now cut the property in half and to build 2 single-family homes. Zoning for the area, the majority of the area here is AGC, and with exception of just north of that Sutton Spring Road, there is some RUD there, also some RUD over on Cedar Lane. These properties here are all zoned AGC. They were originally applied AG zone when the zoning was established. They've been this size lots before they even had zoning, so they probably shouldn't have been.
Just to interrupt you real quick, our packet says three lots.
Okay.
Is it for 2 lots or 3?
I have to go back and double check the application. They could put 3 in there.
It just says the
They
proposed
could,
for the rezoning is to subdivide the parcel to create 3 lots to construct 3
I
homes.
think
Am I looking
yeah,
at the wrong?
yep,
No, you're right. The
Okay.
Yeah,
top of
3
it
lots.
says 3 in the
you're right.
kind of summary, and then it just
The
says in the
application says.
Okay.
subdivide.
Sorry to interrupt. Keep
That's
going.
okay, that's fine. So it would be for 3 lots to go in
Yeah,
this
it's
property
3
here.
Well, it says number of dwelling units, so.
Right.
So the property here area is zoned agricultural with some rural development nearby. The comprehensive plan for the area here is agricultural. There's no rural residential in the general vicinity. And so we're recommending to deny this request. It does not meet the line with the future land use map of the comprehensive plan. And like I mentioned, there really isn't any other rural residential nearby to influence this. There are a few pockets, as I was showing before, of RUD zone parcels along Sharon and Sutton Spring, but the majority of this area here, the properties are AGC. We would not support this request.
And I'm sorry, when I interrupted you, you were talking about these 3 to the north that are.
Right. So in case you were curious, how did those 3 lots get there, and how does that influence what this request is for? Looking back at the original zoning maps, these ones were zoned, they were there, they were established then, and they were zoned AGC. They probably should have been RUD, I guess, because they didn't meet the lot size there. So I wanted to make sure you were aware that they didn't get rezoned to that lot. They weren't family exemption, they were just established already.
Diane, just curious, looking at the color map, it's kind of zoomed in, right? So if we back up right there, so that's not zoned RUD in the light green?
This is RUD on the northern part,
Okay,
but this is AGC right here.
right. All the dark green is AGC, and
Correct.
the lighter green is RUD.
RUD.
It's not from the comprehensive plan development, no, this is actual zoning, right?
Zoning, right. So
Okay.
that's the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive
Okay.
plan is the entire area here, is agricultural.
Okay.
And we're not even seeing any rural residential nearby, like a previous one where you might say, well, it's kind of near the general vicinity. This is all, this entire part of the county is recommended to stay agricultural.
Okey-doke.
So on that parcel to the north, on the left, that is RUD. I'm just seeing one house. Is that correct?
So the RUD properties are through here, and there is a house here and a house here.
Any additional questions for staff? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to deny as staff recommends.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion?
I think this has the spot zoning thing for me, but, sorry. Yeah, that's the issue that I have here.
Spot zoning?
Mhm.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay. Moving on to case 2520, which is tax map number 664-0000-058, which the address is 540 Corporate Boulevard in Rock Hill.
Evening, everyone. Thomas Newland, Long Range Planner. So this is case 2520. You can see it's part of a donut hole right out of the center of Rock Hill. This whole area is characteristically an industrial park right off I-77. So the applicant is seeking to rezone from UD to ID. They want to expand the uses to include trucking operations, vehicle service, repair, customization, and overnight outdoor storage. The aerials here are a little dated. The lot doesn't currently look like this, but it does convey this is very much an industrial area. And you might remember that we actually just rezoned its neighbor to ID. But you can see it's all UD within this space. And it's also within municipal infill, where we're looking to create a seamless transition between the county and incorporated properties and reflect the goals of the municipality. course, Rock Hill has this as an employment center, which is kind of their commercial industrial district. So staff recommends approval of this request. It aligns with the City of Rock Hill's expectations and therefore aligns with ours, and will remove another legacy UD district from the map. Any questions for staff?
If there are no questions, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay. Moving on to case 2522, tax map number 65900000223, address 1528 Harris Road in Fort Mill.
All right, so 2522, this property is kind of between Sutton Road and I-77, just outside the bounds of Fort Mill. They're looking to rezone from RCF 40 to light industrial. So the applicant proposes this change to allow them to continue operating an HVAC service business off of this property. You can see here in the aerial, there's a front building and one behind. The one in the front is currently being used as an office space, and the one behind is, it's being used as a garage and equipment storage, even though it is a residentially permitted structure. So this is a code enforcement case. We have some images here from the code enforcement inspection. And so this rezoning would allow this code enforcement case to be resolved, but the current issues are the development has uses inconsistent with the conditions of approval, that being the structure you see back there, which again was supposed to be a residentially permitted garage, is being used for business. There's also a shipping container within a residential zone, and this is, even with the new potential changes to the shipping container rules, this is only an acre in size, so it doesn't meet that 1.5 acre requirement. This is from the street view, and you can see this is not a characteristically residential space as it's being used right now. So it is currently zoned for residential single-family 40. It's kind of hard to tell on the map, but everything above Harris Road is RCF 40. That south of it is RCF 30, and you do see that there is a presence of neighborhood commercial down Harris Road to the west. Our future land use shows this area is neighborhood residential, which is designed to accommodate a mix of lot sizes and housing types with community servicing businesses kind of centered on major intersections. You can see there's also transitional areas, but that's really common around municipal areas and along these transportation corridors like I-77. We recommend denial of this request. It does not align with the future land use map and comprehensive plan. It would allow the continued operation of an unpermitted trade service, as well as some other more intense uses in this residential zone. It would require a set of variances to meet the standards even for the proposed industrial district. That includes things like, I wrote setbacks here, but really, I mean, the buffers, driveway parking, accessibility, et cetera, and could be considered spot zoning given there's no other presence of LI or any other industrial district in the area. Any questions for staff?
Just a little off, but the residential building permit, was this done by the current owner, or was it done by the previous owner and then someone moved in that started doing this business?
I believe it's the current owner. They've owned this for some years now, I believe, so.
Because I'm just a little surprised, under description of working conditions, there are statements about no commercial activity permitted. So when they got the permit to build the building, it was very explicit that no commercial activity was permitted, but yet they're doing the commercial activity.
That is
Okay.
the case.
My second question about this is more of an education kind of question, but you have somebody that wants to do something like this, and they have a residence, and maybe they're gonna be an independent electrician, and they're an electrician all by themselves, and they have one truck, and they're not really running the business out of their residence, but that's where they park their truck, and they keep some supplies. Where is that kind of line of, hey, that's okay for you to do, and, oh, no, you've slipped into something bigger?
So there are provisions for if this was being used as a primary dwelling, if someone lived here, then, you know, there are clauses that allow at-home businesses, and you'd operate out of those. But in this case, no one, we found no one lives in this residence, so.
Right,
it was
the
purely a
actual
business.
building that would be the residence is being used like a business
Right.
office, right?
Yeah, it's exclusively an office
Right,
space.
and so I guess some of that is just me asking so that folks that may watch this understand that it's not us saying, look, if you're trying to start a business out of your house, you can't ever do that.
Right.
It's the magnitude that you do it, it's how you go about it, and when you reach a certain size, you have to get things zoned appropriately.
Yeah.
Yep, okay. Thank you, sir.
Do we know how long the business has been operating in this way with an office in the front and the shop in the back?
I don't know the date off the top of my head. I don't know if you know, Diane.
Yeah, I think they applied for that permit in 2018.
Yes, it
And
was
so I
dated.
think they've used it, maybe not as long as then, but probably as long as since 2018.
So the permit was for the shop out back?
It was
Is
for the
that-
for the
that-
garage.
That garage building?
Yeah, and it was under a residential permit application and agreed to by the applicant. It was for residential uses only.
Thank you.
That thing's noisy, sorry, y'all.
Are there any additional questions? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to deny as staff recommended.
I'll second that. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay. Moving on to case 2527, which is tax number 658000051 and 050, address 133 Sutton Road South in Fort Mill. And, I'm sorry, 1802 Brian Kelly Lane.
Yeah, 2527. So this is roughly combined, these two parcels make up about 24,000 square feet. They kind of share this corner lot between Brian Kelly and Sutton Road. Again, just right outside of Fort Mill, about a block or so off I-77. So the applicant is looking to rezone from RCIF 30 to RMX 10 for the purpose of reconfiguring the lots. As they are now, the lot line bisects perpendicular to Sutton Road. And so that leaves the northern parcel to only have access off Sutton, as well as it leaves the southern parcel with only 9,000 square feet to work with. So the applicant wants to reconfigure the lines so that the division actually runs parallel to Sutton Road. And they're going to remove the structure that is south of the main dwelling right now, and is very close to it, and essentially relocate it to the other lot to the west. And they want to then have the original residence get an addition and have its access now go on to Brian Kelly rather than Sutton Road. So a lot of this area is RCIF 30. Again, it's hard to tell on the map, but the deeper orange is RCIF 30, the lighter is RCIF 40. You can see neighborhood commercial just up the road. And this is all single-family residential, and, you know, we're looking for kind of large lot residences. And certainly, RCIF 30 is kind of the smallest zoned lot that we're looking for this area. But despite all that, we are going to recommend approval. It does not align with the future land use map and comprehensive plan. Like I said, going smaller than RCIF 30 isn't what we're looking to expect from single-family designation. However, there is no configuration of the properties that would conform to RCIF 30 zone's minimum lot requirements. The proposed development won't change the expected land use or density of the area, but it will remove an older home and remove a residential curb cut off of Sutton Road. Any questions for staff?
So
Just-
Sorry, go ahead.
No, please, I've been asking a bunch, you go.
So with RMX 10, other uses, or potential other uses pop up, correct?
you see you get more attached housing types with it,
Right.
you know, duplex, triplex, that sort of thing.
Can we, and we've kind of started making requirements, or can we do that moving forward? To say it must be single-family residential?
You're wanting to recommend, some sort of restriction?
Yeah.
You can make that
I-
recommendation.
I asked the question because as you get smaller, then, right, apartments and duplexes and townhomes and condos and things are allowed. And
Certainly.
on
Not-
one of those small.
Not apartments and not townhomes.
Okay, that's.
So
that's
all you're going to
MX6,
be able
right?
to do here, besides single-family detached, would be a duplex, a quad, or a triplex.
Okay.
So,
one,
but they're
two,
not
three.
considered townhomes or apartments. Just want to be clear.
Okay, sorry, I misspoke.
That's okay.
And to add, this is very small space we're
No, I-
talking about.
To
you
do
know,
that.
I do-
24,000.
Yeah, it is definitely a very small space. I guess that's really my concern, is it is a very small space,
Mhm.
but if it can be done, somebody eventually
We'll
will
find
try
a
to
way.
do it. So do we have any other questions of staff before I make? a
Yeah,
motion?
just, so this is 24,000 total
Total.
that's now being rearranged into 12-ish each?
Yeah, it's
or
a little
take?
bit heavier on the,
And then
yeah,
the driveway that's on Sutton is going to be abandoned, and there's going to be driveways only on Brian Kelly?
that's right.
Did I, okay, I followed everything. Yay. That's, they were just clarifying. Thank you very much. That's all I got.
Which I do think is a great idea, because then we're not slowing down
Oh, yeah.
stuff. Any other questions? I would like to make a motion to approve with the condition that only single-family homes be allowed on the lots.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
And to clarify that, so you would be making that recommendation that there be a deed restriction for applicant.
Yes.
And can you say that single-family detached dwelling, just to kind of make sure we know exactly what we're talking about?
Okay. Yes, so to clarify, I'd like to make a motion to approve with the stipulation that they be single-family detached homes with deed restrictions moving forward. Only due to the small size of the lot, and I would hate to see someone try to come back and use the smaller zoning to squish more on there and potentially cause traffic problems and other things.
And I re-second
You
the
re, you re-second it?
motion. Yes.
Is there any re-discussion?
Nope.
No? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, moving on to case 2528, which is tax map number 543-00-00003 and 006. The address is 158, 110, and 130 Hansmill Highway in Rock Hill.
So, 25, 28, two parcels are just at the intersection of Hansmill Highway and Old York Road. You can tell they're just right outside Rock Hill. They're right off where the Norfolk Southern Railway runs. And the idea is to combine these two lots and then build a gas station and convenience store here to service this intersection. You can see in the site plan, a lot of what actually butts up to the intersection will be left relatively undeveloped, and the curb cut will be farther up north. The primary zone here is UD. Everything around this intersection is pretty tightly urban development. And our future land use plan actually has this within a community center node. So we're looking for commercial and service establishments, strategically placed around intersections like this. And its underlaying is actually neighborhood residential, which, obviously is a residential designation, but at major subdivision or intersections, we're looking for services and amenities that will then provide for the neighborhoods behind it. So we recommend approval of this request since it aligns with the future land use map and comprehensive plan. The proposed zone allows for businesses that provide amenities and services at that major intersection and will remove 2 legacy UD districts from the map. Any questions for staff?
Couple of quickies here. So there's a structure, 4 structures that are gonna be taken down, is that right?
Yes, so these are actually vacant and boarded up
Right.
old
So,
residences.
you're right. So the structures come down, and then as we're looking at the picture to the right, we see where the gas station's going to go. Does that mean there'll be tree save in that space coming down back to Hands Mill Highway, or could all that be taken out and opened up? Because it does, looking at that picture on the right, they're not using the entire spot that we're combining and rezoning for the gas station, yes?
Well, they would have to find their tree save. I'm sure that's where they intend to put their tree save.
Okay.
And probably also within the buffers that you see they have around the parking lot there, but.
And then I just have a side question. Do we have any regulations or anything about how far certain things have to be away from railroad tracks? I'm not saying that this would violate anything, but I'm just curious, is there anything in our code that says, oh, by the way, you can't have a gas station within 200 feet of a, operating rail line? Okay, I'm just curious. I like I think where they put it is wise. I was just curious if there's a stipulation that, all right.
What other businesses are in this intersection? I can't tell.
There is a gas station catty corner to that.
Yeah.
And the businesses along the left-hand side, there was a furniture or mattress place, and there's a lumberyard.
Used to be the old, what is it, Sportsman, I believe?
The sports,
Used to be
there used to
right
be a
along in
shooting
there.
range right there as well.
Right.
But that was a little further down
Yeah.
from the intersection, but this, like, in here,
Mm-hmm.
pretty sure that's the lumberyard.
And this
There's
is
a
gas
mattress
station here.
There's a gas station right at that.
And if you look down on that Winterberry Road, I think there's like a ice cream or some kind of stand on that lot down there on that corner. And I can't I think something's
No,
abandoned
it's
on that
right.
corner of Adnet Church and
It is actually, yeah, but it's on,
on the other side of, the lower side, yeah.
it's on Old York Road.
York, yeah.
It's right
The
there.
corner of Old York and
Tommy's,
Winterberry.
TK's, my goodness, they're gonna hurt me for not remembering that, but it's one of those.
Okay, so the lumberyard's over here.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
this is coming into this intersection as you're coming from Rock Hill and you make the right on Hands Mill to go out.
Walmart's down here.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any additional questions for staff? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, that passes. Let's see. So we're finished with our rezoning and take a look at the rezoning sheet. Did we get one? Am I missing one?
Yes, it was buried at the very bottom of this, but yes, it was there.
I lost it. Sorry.
No, no worries.
Okay, so is there any questions about that?
Ma'am.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Have a good night.